2023, week one, the first Friday, inside Blitz time, and we're back with Ron, and we're back with Ted from Ted Sobel Sports USA Live. They're sick of Ron and I. How have you been, Ted?
Well, I've been good. It's great to start the new season, and I'm excited because I'm seasonal. I tell everybody I'm like a watermelon. I work a hockey season and NFL, and it's great to be back for week one. Interesting game last night. I know we're not going to talk much about it, but I thought it was sort of a perfect example of the new NFL. You know, nobody plays in the preseason. It looked like it. It was sloppy. It was a great game to watch because it was close. Poor tackling, strange play calling at times. But the most important thing is that the Detroit Lions won for Las Vegas, Cris, and nothing else matters.
Ron?
It's good to get week one underway. What I liked about week one's game is the NFL production was crisp and good. After complaining all weekend long about how television is ruining the NCAA, 130 plays, 131 commercials in one of the games, I really liked the flow of the game. I think it was a contentious game, as Ted said, a little bit sloppy in areas. You hit the nail on the head. But I think both teams will learn from this. And for the Lions to learn how to win on the road right away, big coup for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just the fact that Detroit found a way is a great sign. But I thought Kansas City was they were all over the place. And that's what happens when you don't have your go-to guy to deal with. It just really hurt without Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
You guys are going to have to keep talking for a moment because I'm having difficulty sending this link out.
Well, let's first talk, Ron, about the fact that the Sports USA doubleheader coming up, and we'll be talking about that throughout the show. Tennessee at New Orleans, not the most exciting matchup of all time, but week one is week one. And, you know, there's some changes with Derek Carr in New Orleans now, and Tannehill's healthy again, but are the Titans healthy coming off 7 straight losses last year? And then the Packers at the Bears in our second game, an interesting matchup, mostly because the guy who owns the Bears doesn't live there anymore. And so we'll see how Jordan Love does for Green Bay. And, you know, there's so many storylines for week one. We're going to cover as many as we can.
The NFL is great because everybody's 0-0 to start. At least they were until last night.
Exactly.
And so everybody has a chance. And when you look at Tennessee and New Orleans, I think it is a compelling matchup because New Orleans is the lukewarm favorite to win that particular division. And Tennessee ebbs and flows during the offseason because at one time it looked like they were dumping a bunch of people. They drafted a running back when they didn't need one. They drafted another quarterback who can't avoid the pass rush if he had to. It seems like they didn't fill gaps. And then all of a sudden they sign a veteran here and there. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. So maybe they're trying in a division that features Indianapolis and Houston with 2 brand new quarterbacks, brand new coaching staffs. Maybe it's not a stretch to say that Tennessee has a legit shot this year. And
yes,
so that's why this game is really compelling because why not start off? I mean, maybe by the end of the year, we're benching Tannehill because we know the future isn't this year. But week one, Tennessee, I believe, should feel that they're right in the thick of the playoff race.
Yeah, and I think the Titans are a weird team this year because we have no idea what to expect from them. You know, they got a new offensive coordinator. They found themselves in such a downward spiral last year. When you lose the last 7 games after you're 7-3 to begin the year with big hopes, you were the number 1 seed the previous year in the playoffs, the forgotten number 1 seed because everybody's saying they had no chance, and they ended up losing in the first round as a lot of people expected. And it's all about Derrick Henry always, and probably still is to a point. You know, when he goes, they go. And as long as Tennessee stays in the hunt, they got a chance in that very, very weak division.
I'd like to say that Tennessee has just been misunderstood for 2 years in a row. 2 years ago, they were the number 1 seed, but my metrics, and I believe Ron felt the same way, they were garbage. They were not even in the top 10. Not once during the entire season did Tennessee make the top 10 list, not even for a single week. Now, last year, when they were looking like garbage, we picked up on that. Wait a minute, this team is not garbage. They have something here. And I think we got 1 or 2 point spread wins out of them before they made a run. And then they just got decimated with the injuries and became a different team. But that team it is better than people realize they are. And they're kind of like the forgotten team. And they've got somebody behind Henry now to run behind him. They've got more receivers. They've got a lot on this team to be disruptive. And if they stay healthy and with the right coaching and the right moves, they could be anywhere.
Yeah, they got a new O-line too, a combination, which is going to see. Well, of course, we'll have an interview shortly, but I think that's a big part of their success this year. Does that O-line get together and do what they're supposed to do for the long haul here?
Yeah. I will say this: we love week 1. We're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk with the wide receiver and so on. But if at any point that Tannehill misses action this year, it's fade city for Tennessee, because the quarterbacks behind him will not survive behind this offensive line. But Tannehill's a veteran. He's generally accurate. He's got some weapons, like Cris said. He's got Henry to keep people honest in the backfield. The hope is that Harold Landry, the defensive end who missed the entire season last year but is potentially a double-digit sack artist, that he teams with Jeffrey Simmons, who also is a high draft choice, runs a little hot and cold, but the two of them together could play off each other and create a pass rush that will make it a little bit easier for their secondary, which is pretty average in my opinion. We're not saying Tennessee's a great team, but they don't have to be a great team to be competitive in that division.
Ron, didn't I see somewhere that they were actually surprised with Willis's preseason? He's different. He's better. He's grasping stuff finally. Or
yes and no. That's what they say. He's more confident, but they all took a lot of sacks when they were in the game.
Yep.
And he's going to be a one-read quarterback. He's going to have that dreaded, I haven't played and I have a substandard offensive line for him and almost no tight end play. It's just going to kill him if he's in the game. I wouldn't trust him for a minute this year.
I think there's a thing we don't talk about enough. I believe there's also a Mike Vrabel effect on this team. He's a little bit like Tomlin, like the team takes over his whole attitude and the way he comes across as a coach. I like what he does for a team. They were so decimated by injuries last year. You got to throw the second half of that season out the window and just pretend like it never happened. So I think they'll turn it around to a point. I just don't know how good they can actually be. Maybe good enough to win their division, but probably not going anywhere in the playoffs.
Now you have a couple of I'm not prepped on these. What makes this a little bit different? We've got some great player interviews, and they're by you. We get to actually submit questions through you sometimes. And so hopefully it's meaningful stuff. It's not just stuff we're pulling off the internet. This is personalized for use. And where do you want to start off with those?
Well, we're talking Tennessee, so let's go with their wide receiver, Nick Westbrook Akine, who is off a not so good year. And part of that is because Tannehill didn't play. He only played 12 games last year, Tannehill, with the ankle injury. And so, all their receivers are going to be off on their numbers last year. But the previous year, he was pretty good. And what I love about Nick, and I've had him on a few times, I'm a huge undrafted guy. I love talking to the undrafteds who aren't there for 10 minutes. They make the league. They stay there. He's not a number one receiver and never will be, but he's pretty damn good and really candid. And let's go to the Westbrook Akine interview.
And I do want to remind anybody that's watching or listening. Last year, we had some really good success a handful of times picking up tidbits that helped us decide whether we were going to play that team. I remember Taylor's interview with Indianapolis it stood out, and there was a couple of other ones where I found actionable information from listening to these guys. So it's certainly not just time filler, or we're trying to get something actionable out of this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get something out of them too, as opposed to I don't want to hear the 110% responses. I'm not interested.
All right, let's run with Nick Westbrook.
How are you, guy?
I'm doing well. Excited to get this season kicked off.
Good. Main thing is you're healthy, and that's all that matters.
Exactly, yeah.
Nick, undrafted 4 years ago out of Indiana. What do you remember about the day in your rookie camp when you got cut and how you felt getting re-signed the next day to the practice squad, and then here you are?
Yeah, looking back, when we had cut day this year, definitely took me back to that moment. I'm just extremely blessed and grateful to still be here, still playing the game I love, and try to take advantage of every opportunity I've got going forward.
So what's it been like getting DeAndre Hopkins into your receivers room, and how's he looked thus far on the field?
It's been great. Obviously Hop's one of the best receivers in the game, and so just be able to be in the same room as him, hear his knowledge and his experience as we're watching film, as we're doing scouting on defenses, and it's just been huge. And it's a guy I've looked up to since college, so it's exciting. I can't wait to see it out in the field and be a part of it.
Absolutely. We're with Tennessee receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine. How have things changed under new OC Tim Kelly? Because to the outsider, it's like, hey, give the ball to Derrick Henry, and then whatever happens after that happens.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Got to know Tim a little bit last year over the course of the season. And so just kind of seeing him just be able to step up and take charge has been great. And I feel like we're in a good spot. I'm excited to show what we've been doing this off season, all the work we've put in, and show where he led us and how he's got us ready.
Any kind of a different look that you can give us, without obviously giving the game plan out?
Yeah, I think a big thing is just being multiple, being able to be versatile, and using guys, every player out there using their strength and their skill set to the best of their advantage, and putting guys in places where they can show off what they're good at.
How about your new look O-line, how they've grown in camp? And let's face it, you guys are going to be as successful as they are.
Yeah, it's been great. Watching them develop and grow. Kind of gel together, different guys that maybe haven't played together. But I think that's just a testament to, this team, the coaches, Vrabel, Haas, Tim, and all the offensive coaches of getting those guys ready. And so I'm excited to see them, get to show out, the work that they've put in.
Challenges facing that New Orleans pasty, second fewest in the league and giving up yards per game last year.
Yeah, they're a talented group. Got some athletes and got guys, that have been veterans and played well at a high level for some years now. So, we know the challenge ahead of us, but also we know that if we play the way that we know we're capable of and lock in on everything that we've got going on in the game plan, that we should be able to step up to that challenge.
Couple more things, Nick. What's it been like being under the radar in your division, a year removed from just being the top seed in the AFC playoffs? It almost feels like yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not one that pays much attention to whatever projections or anything there is. So, like you saying under the radar, I wouldn't have even known. So I'm just over here, doing my best to, first off, it was this off season and this camp, earn a spot on this team, earn a role. And then now it's just focus on winning games, and, that'll all shake itself out as the season goes on.
Yeah, well, speaking of winning, you guys dropped your last 7 last year. I'm just wondering, what's the confidence like in the room right now, and how much of that is like, hey, you know what, we got to show everybody we are back?
Yeah, last year is last year, so you see it all the time, years past, Super Bowl winning teams come back and don't have great seasons. It doesn't mean anything. You see teams that struggled the year before and come back and make a run. So every year is different in the league, and that's just a testament to the competition that's out there, but also to all the guys and all the teams that put in work in the off season to be successful once the regular season comes around.
So in other words, a great example, you got to shut out the outside noise, whatever it takes, right?
Exactly. You know, you can't focus on the past and try to go forward. So that's the only way, is just focus on what we got next.
I got you. Well, I promise you, my outside noise is done. I appreciate your time, man. It's always fun watching you play, and have a great year. All right.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Nick, how are you, guy?
I'm doing well.
Oh,
Excited.
he's back again. That's it. Hey, by the way, one of the reasons I like getting Nick, first of all, I've had him a few times, so I know that he's doesn't just speak, coach or players speak. He tends to give me what's going on in his mind and his heart. But I wanted to get into the receivers room because let's face it, Hopkins is totally something that they haven't had for a while over there, and if he's still got some of that greatness left, that's going to be a huge difference for this team. And with a new OC, it could be a very interesting look if that guy can stay healthy and still produce what we expect from him.
Shameless plug, but what makes our show different is that we have somebody on our crew here, Ted, that asks the right questions because he's been doing it for 30, 40 years or whatever. And these are the kinds of things, even if you pick up one or two nuggets from these interviews, I think it's really helpful. So great line of questioning. Yes, there's a lot of unknowns about Tennessee, but when we move on to New Orleans, there may be a few unknowns about this team. What are you guys' thoughts about the Saints?
Yeah, what do you think, Chris?
First of all, I gotta be honest. When we started doing this last year and we were pumping in these interviews, my heart really wasn't into it because you have a perception of what these interviews are about, and as you guys have both referenced, when you're able to cut through the nonsense questions and you can really just get a couple of here and there questions that's go behind the scenes to kind of give you an answer in a roundabout way that can't be fed out on TV everywhere and goes a little under the radar, maybe a little more freedom to speak. I've been getting information out of all these interviews for the most part of value. So it's not just some sort of athlete droning along with the same old. Because if he's not able to get the content that's worth airing, then we're not going to. So I'm very optimistic on the Saints. I'm not going to bet this game, though, because I consider both of these teams play-on teams. And I don't really want to play against two play-on teams in my, betting thinking. I'd rather just sit this one out. No results really going to surprise me because there's some adjustments that are involved. If I had to pick, I would take the Saints. I know there's sharp money on Tennessee. There's a lot of sharp trends and history that you can follow that support Tennessee also. The movements that way, when underdogs get those movements, that's kind of scary. So there's a lot of reasons to like both teams. This is just one of the games I'm going to enjoy watching.
Yeah. What I like about the Saints is that, actually there's two ways of looking at it. What I don't like about them is their head coach. I don't think he's head coaching material. I think Dennis Allen is just another guy, and he's just another guy who's a defensive coach, which bothers me in this era. So I don't know if that's going to take them anywhere where they need to go. I think it's all about what their offensive people are able to do, and specifically now with Derek Carr behind center. I like that addition. I think he is perfect for what they needed. But they need more than him. So it's not just about Derek Carr, but they've added some pieces around him. It's interesting. Last night I listened to an interview of Foster Moreau, who was his teammate with the Raiders. And here he is. He's an LSU guy. He's born and raised in New Orleans. So he's going home and a little under the radar. He's a pretty damn good tight end, He's not the best in the league, but he's solid. And there's already chemistry between him and Carr. And I don't think that's talked about very much. So I like that addition over there. I don't know if the Saints are deep enough to do anything special this year. But again, in a winnable division, they're going to be very competitive. And I just wish their head coaching was a little bit more elite than what they have.
Do we have a Chris Olave interview too?
Yes, we do.
Is
And
this
I
a
got,
good time for that?
yeah, if you'd like, unless Ron, you want to drop a couple of thoughts in there?
I'll put a couple of thoughts in before we hear Cris. Obviously, Ted and I know each other a long time, so he probably knows what I already wrote about and what we've talked about. Yeah, Dennis Allen is a one-dimensional coach, and that's a problem because they're not creative enough offensively. There are holes on Tennessee, but the Saints' offensive line isn't perfect right now. They lost some players last year. There's a little bit of a health concern right now. We don't know what Michael Thomas brings. If he's back to form from 3 years ago, fine, but he's going to have to prove it on the field. The Saints have a good defense, so that's going to be an interesting matchup in terms of the experience of Tennessee in the backfield versus the experience of the Saints in their own particular backfield. I'll say this one thing. We'll play Cris Olave, then we can go on with some of the picks. I will say this. I expect the Saints to be completely one-dimensional offensively in this game. Tennessee has one of the top run defenses. Alvin Kamara is suspended for this game.
Yep.
I would not be shocked if Derek Carr throws the ball between 35 and 42 times in this particular game, which is above the norm. And so what happens when it's 3rd and long might be the deciding factor in this game.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I spoke with Cris Olave a couple of days ago. I happened to just get him before his first NFL game last year. And I thought he was fairly candid guy. Again, really important part of the offense for this team, no doubt. You use his route running, and I asked him about that in the interview. I think he and Derek Carr are going to make a really interesting combo, and I think his TD totals are going to go up this year because of that. Because Derek Carr is not afraid to throw it wherever the hell he wants to throw it. So I like that combination a lot. So let's hear some from Cris.
How you doing?
I'm good. We had you week 1 last year. Thanks for coming on, man.
Oh yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. 2 years in a row. We love that. All right, Cris, you put up over 1,000 yards, 72 catches, 4 TDs, and 48 first down conversions in 15 games as a rookie. You got to be happy with your season last year.
Oh yeah, it was pretty good, man. There's always places you could get better at. So going into year 1, having those opportunities and having my teammates and coaches believe in me was huge. But I feel like I got a lot better, and I'm ready for this year.
How do you assess the season overall, though, and what you learned the most?
It was a tough year, especially for New Orleans, having a winning culture, not having a year go your way. But I feel like the culture and the tradition is always going to show itself. So building something really good over here. We've done a lot of chemistry within the team, so I'm excited.
You came into the league highly graded in route running, and I'm wondering, what did the first season teach you about that and the comparison from college to what you need to do in the pros?
I feel like it's similar from college. Just learning a lot from Ohio State. The coaches out there, Coach Hartline, Coach they taught me teach us a lot about route running and stuff there. So we developed well Ohio State, and it translated well into the NFL. So
how much did you work on building up the body to just have a nice, longer, enduring run in this league?
Oh yeah, I've worked on that a lot this off season. Just focusing on nutrition and being in the weight room a lot more often. So I feel like I'm excited for this year, and I can't wait to play on Sunday.
We're with Saints wide receiver Cris Olave, who's got Pro Bowl in his sights coming up hopefully soon. Talk about the adjustment, your new starting quarterback this year in Derek Carr.
Man, I'm excited. I can't wait to play with Derek. He's a leader on and off the field. He got a calm composure. So I'm excited to play with him, man. He's competitive just like us. So it's going to be a great year. He's a great quarterback. Had a great career out in with the Raiders. So we're going to see what we can build this year.
Cris, he seems like he'd be the easiest guy in the world to ever work with. Did you build an extra chemistry during the offseason with him?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We've been throwing a lot, especially in the summer before training camp. So I feel like we built a lot of chemistry during training camp. It's been a long training camp. So I feel like we built up a lot of work within the offense. So I feel like we're ready, going to be ready to go on Sunday.
Yeah, and you got to be salivating. Your big playability and Derek's love of throwing the deep ball.
Oh yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I feel like we got a lot of weapons. We got a lot of weapons in the offense, so it's gonna be a fun year, and I'm expecting to have a lot of fun this year.
Speaking of those weapons, deep receivers room, how's Michael Thomas coming along?
He's coming along well, man. I mean, just his work ethic is the thing that stands out to me. He's been fighting to be on the field for the longest. I know he's got a chip on his shoulder, so I'm excited to see him play this year. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Couple more things, Cris. Talk about your opponent in Tennessee. What do you see as the biggest challenge against their pass D, which was ranked last in the league, but they were first in run D last season?
Right. Yeah, they got a really good team, and they're competitive. They got a really good coach over there. It's a winning culture, so I know they're gonna come out and compete. It's week 1, so everybody's gonna come to play week 1, and so we got to be ready for them.
And a winnable division, and your favorites to get it done. So how do you feel like compared to last year at this time, now saying, hey, we got a really good chance to take care of biz?
Yeah, I feel like we got a really good roster. Been fighting, being competitive, getting better during training camp. I feel like we've been a lot of things over here just to go up against somebody else. Just to try and take it week by week, game by game. So we're focused on Tennessee right now.
Yep, all the best, man. Appreciate you coming on. Have a fantastic second season, and hopefully see you on that Pro Bowl list soon.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Cris?
How you doing?
Cris Olave is the kind of guy, because he's young, that's the only negative about it, because he's still becoming media savvy and all that kind of stuff. And you know, we got to deal with it. That's my personal growing pains with guys like him. But I'll tell you what, I did want to get on. I wanted to get him because obviously he's top receiver on the team now. But I wanted to get that feedback about the offense because Derek Carr and Michael Thomas, Thomas wasn't even part of the team the last few years. And so it's going to be really fascinating to see if they can all mesh.
I was disappointed with his answer. We were just talking about these types of answers, and you asked him a really nice question we wanted the answer to regarding the weak secondary and the strong rushing defense.
Yeah.
And I know the coaches are working on it, and they're a really good team.
That's
really
the only
good coaches.
Cris. That's the only negative about talking to a young guy because most of them, you know, there's give and take with all of them. I just try to squeeze it out of them like lemon juice.
Ron, do you have any plays on this game?
Yeah, well, one thing about the interview that surprised me, I mean, obviously you're going to talk nice about your teammates, but I have a question about Michael Thomas's desire to be in New Orleans and his work ethic. And for him to actually use the words work ethic kind of, you know, got me to sit up in my seat a little, because if Michael Thomas really wants to be there, and if it's true about his work ethic, then that's going to be an interesting thing. And I'm going to be charting that. So I thought that was a nugget that you were able to get out of Cris.
Yeah. And you know what, not only that, but I think that Michael Thomas, because of maybe he's evolved through adversity the last few years, and he's learning, hey, you know what? I don't know how much more I got left in this thing. I better bust my ass to get the most out of my career, wherever it may be. And they did like him in New Orleans. Now he's just sort of hey, you know, are you still the guy that is going to help us to the point where we need you? So I think that could be a really interesting just how he comes across this year. And is he a true leader in that room?
So to close the books on this particular game, yes, I have a technical play on Tennessee plus the 3.5. Anytime you can get over a hook, New Orleans is the favorite. It's New Orleans is one of the biggest splits for underdogs and favorites most seasons going through. Part of it is the culture now of the coach that they have. A lot of it is divisional play. But in week 1, when you have a Tennessee team that has the potential to do some damage against the offensive line. Now, I'll be wrong if Simmons and Landry can't get to Derek Carr, because then that Tennessee pass defense is vulnerable. But conversely, it's going to be interesting to see the experience of Tannehill and the experience of Derrick Henry week 1 when they're really fresh. I have this as a relative toss-up game, and so the hook was a technical play for me. I am on Tennessee plus the 3.5.
Yeah, and my biggest concern with Tennessee always, and until they show me different, if they fall behind, they're not a come from behind team. They're because it's grind it out with Henry, and then not make mistakes. If you fall behind by more than a touchdown, now it's a whole different ball game, and we'll see if they can do that with their personnel.
We'll see. Hopkins and maybe a healthy Burks
Yeah,
elevates
exactly.
the wide receiver room.
Yep, hopefully.
Next.
I've got some news. Apparently, Watson's not going to play.
Yeah, that was a concern that I was going to mention. Packers at the Bears. You have Watson and Romeo Dobbs, both with hammy injuries. And Watson was very questionable. I heard
He's
LaFleur,
still officially questionable. It just scrolled.
right.
The Watson's out.
I think he'll be more of a game time or same day decision. They got some issues there. The rest of them are all 15-year-olds.
We talked about that, Ted. We said they have to be ID'd every time they go to a bar because there's nobody who's barely 21 years old on wide receiver or tight end.
Exactly. Or quarterback. Not quite, of course. But anyway, it's going to be fascinating to see how that team starts on the road in a rivalry game against a decent, hopefully improved Bears defense, because they weren't very good before. They've added some bodies, so we'll see if that helps their cause. But hey, that receivers room is getting a little thin.
Cris, go for it. What do you got?
I like the Packers this year. Obviously I'm a Lions fan. I'm rooting for the Lions, but everybody really, are making too much of Aaron Rodgers' departure. Frankly, I feel Green Bay's a better team than Chicago all the way across. You're asking Fields to make quite a jump, an improvement in what he was able to accomplish last year, just to get normalized. I mean, some of his metrics are so far south. There'd be another 7 quarterbacks in between 31 and 32 if there were. So I like Chicago. They seem to be trying to build a nice culture, but it just seems like all the parts don't fit, if that makes any sense. They just grab people where they can, and there's still too many holes. Montgomery would have been better for them to keep. Who did they replace Montgomery with?
I'm not worried too much about their run game. I don't have the names offhand, but
their run game is their quarterback anyway.
No, I know, but Montgomery would have been nice to be back there. It seems like that's
almost anybody can run on Green Bay. It's been proven year after year. Yeah. Running quarterbacks give them a very tough time. That's not really going to be the issue in this game. We've talked about this in the past, especially last year, but context of when you play a team matters. Yes. And I realized that if you put 100 people in a room, 99 apparently are going to be on Green Bay, and I'm going to be standing in the corner with the Chicago Bear flag, even though if you read my previews, which I tweeted out earlier today, I'm higher on Green Bay than Chicago. I have Green Bay as possibly an 8.5, 9-win team, and I can't really push Chicago over 7. But their season is on the line, as Cris and I have talked about on a couple of shows. This is the game. There's no other focus. They're not 1-3 right now and getting down on themselves. They're 0-0. They've been owned by Aaron Rodgers for years and years. They can't get over that hump. And this is such a young Green Bay team. And Love in his first game and the pass rusher that the Bears just picked up in order to combat that. There's no time like the present. This is the best situation that Chicago could ever have to beat Green Bay, and it has to be done now or it's never going to be done.
Right. Ted, have you been able to figure out from talking to any of the people whether it's more of a what the energy is, sort of whether it's more of a they're happy-go-lucky or this game is going to set the tone for the season? Do they understand basically how crucial this opening game is. They have to have this win. Green Bay doesn't have to have this win. Chicago has to have this win.
No, absolutely. But the question is Chicago good enough? Again, I want to see what their defense is all about. You're going up against a first-time starter. We know he started a few games, but it's a whole new era. It's on the road, opening day rivalry. The crowd's going to be a little more jazzed up than even the normal opening day game. They hate the Packers. So that's going to be fascinating to watch. The one thing Jordan Love has, he has the best O-line in the division. So that to me is hugely important.
We disagree.
You think Detroit's is better?
Detroit's is clearly better.
I don't agree with that.
Especially health-wise with Bakhtiari in and out of the lineup.
No, if Bakhtiari's healthy, then the Packers are better. If Bakhtiari's just another guy, then absolutely Detroit. No, Bakhtiari's the best O-lineman in the division. Sorry. I mean, That's the truth. Yes. When he's healthy, no doubt.
An offensive line is about chemistry. I know we're having a little counterpoint here.
No, that's great.
If you take any individual player, maybe Green Bay's better, but in terms of building chemistry, the Lions' cohesive offensive, and I have no problems with the Green Bay offensive line. This is not to knock them, but the Lions could never have won the game yesterday without a cohesive offensive line.
Yeah, but would they have won the game?
The clock the way they did.
If Chris Jones played, would they have won the game? I don't think so. Seriously,
I actually do.
No, because they put pressure on Goff without him. Surprisingly, so a few times. I was a little bit, and Goff can't move. I mean, his feet are stuck in mud.
If Kelsey plays, the Lions lose. If Chris Jones plays, the Lions still find a way to win.
I agree with that. Kelsey was the difference.
Okay. Bottom line to me with Jordan Love, we don't know what we're going to get out of him. I think they're going to play it safe for a while until they find out if he's able to open it up a little bit. And, if he's got that ability without throwing the ball away, the kind of thing where what's his TD to interception ratio going to be like the first half of the season? I think that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
We do have a clip to play here, Chris, from Aaron Jones, the running back of the Pack, who was asked about if Jordan Love was going to be nervous. And I thought this was a really interesting response, which I normally wouldn't be into, but we don't know that much about this guy and his personality. So let's hear from Aaron Jones and what he says about Jordan Love.
You can't tell that he's nervous. I was talking to one of our coaches, Connor Lewis, and I'm like, this guy is like the right guy for this. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't get shook. He's always poised. And Connor goes, I've been trying to get up under, because I'm like, what gets up under his skin? Like I can't make sense of it. He's like, nothing. I haven't been able to get under his skin. I've been trying. So although he may be a little nervous, he's calm, cool, and collected. He's more than ready, and we're ready to help him. You can't tell that he's nervous.
That's it. Fascinating there that he can't get rattled, which is a nice thing to have, obviously, as your starting quarterback, and so many unknowns about him. I mean, Rod knows more about him than all of us put together from his college days, but that's now 4 years ago. And he's now a pro. It's like, okay, what are you going to prove here, buddy? And you got to at least have that where you can't get under his skin. I like that. That's a nice thing to have going in, right?
He is the X factor because he's so much more mature than he was. He would throw into coverage. He had no idea where to throw balls in his last year in college. A whole mess of interceptions in the Mountain West Conference.
So about like forcing the issue a lot?
He would just see things that weren't there.
Really?
Wow. He would just throw. It was almost Tommy Maddox-like, and Tommy Maddox from the UCLA days. And he just threw into coverage. He trusted his arm. But he's more mature. He understands the windows. He's been behind Aaron Rodgers, who was behind Brett Favre, and so on. So I don't think he's going to be Favre or Aaron Rodgers, but he's markedly better than he was before. And certainly he gives he gives Green Bay a chance to win this game. He's more ready now than he's ever been. I just think with the run game Chicago has, and somebody did mention their running back who's very good, Herbert, plus the Fields situation, plus the fact that Fields has a big play wide receiver for the first time in DJ Moore. And that means Mooney goes from a number one where he wasn't qualified to a number two where he's very qualified to be. Cole Kmet could be used then as a tight end. there's a lot of chances for Chicago to exert themselves week one. I have no problem with Jordan Love as a quarterback. I just think that over the course of the year, while Green Bay will be better than Chicago, week one is a tall task.
I have one question, Ron, about Jordan Love's arm to you. What you remember his arm to be in college. And I have not heard anybody talk about this. And I'm hoping to get Jordan for week 3. Sports USA is airing New Orleans at Green Bay. And I will get a Packers interview, and I'm asking for Love in advance. So hopefully, I always got Rodgers at least once a year. So I have no idea. But anyway, if I can ask Jordan, and I'm going to ask you what you remember about his arm in college, because watching him in practice and the little bit he's played in exhibition games, he looks like he's picked up some of the Rodgers little short flicks, like he's using his wrist a lot. He's not worried, like especially the short stuff, where like Rodgers will just flip one over, just the way, and he looks a lot like him. And there's no way some of that didn't rub off on him during the 3 years.
Yeah, arm strength's not an issue. The ability to throw down the field,
right.
But the ability to, the learning from Rodgers and how he sees things, certainly he's picked up on that. And the understanding that those throws are better than throwing in coverage, and those throws can move the chains. I think if they do win this game, then we've got a situation where Jordan Love took notes, and he was a student. And he understood how you move the chains and so on and so forth. And the Bears defense, while it was good, really good a few years ago, is really trended to average to below average. And coaching, there is a slight concern in terms of the coaching. I think some of the second-year guys will be good. But this will be a good test for Jordan Love on a high-profile conference game, road game for them, even though Green Bay will have fans there. They always have fans there. But this is the real stuff now.
Yeah, and they've lost 8 straight to the Packers too. But those Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears days are over.
Well, maybe not. Because if they can't win this game, forget it.
No. Well, Aaron Rodgers isn't there anymore, so it's over in that respect.
Okay, Chris. Tell us
we've got
why you
Ron
like
on Chicago, and who do you like, Ted?
I like the Bears.
Okay.
To me, it's a game where if they don't win this game, they show it's just going to be another 6 or 7 win season.
I have Green Bay teaser action in play, a little bit of money line, but I was planning on adding more Green Bay, but I decided not to add more Green Bay.
Not because of this conversation.
No. Ron said it at the start of the discussion on this team is he can't find anybody that's not been in Green Bay. And I do kind of agree with that. And just my ears are perking up a little bit on it. It's a long season. I don't mind having a taste. Don't mind but I don't need to be pot committed. Having a little bit of a taste on the better team. I don't have a problem with that. If Chicago at home shows up and breaks that losing streak, good for them. We're going to move on.
Yep. Yeah. And, the other thing I think about too is just if you had to lay any points with the Bears, I would say 0 chance I'd be on them. But the fact that it's basically a pick'em game now, to me, I'm going with the team at home. It's like, if you don't take care of biz, it's going to be a long year, boys.
One final comment on the game is that my power ratings are accurate on this game. It's not saying that the Bears have an advantage. Oh my goodness, I'm betting the Bears because they should be 3-point favorites or anything. That's not the case. I'm betting them because this is the most focused they're ever going to be.
That's true.
It's week 1.
Absolutely.
They can run on Green Bay, and they added a pass rusher. So a little bit of metric and a little bit of situational, because I never want to go just situational. If I lose, I lose, but I want to go out there on record by saying at least that I have reasons.
And one more guy we didn't mention who's going to play, but I think he's on a pitch count, is Rashawn Gary of the Packers. He's not 100% either going into week 1. So he's as good as anybody on their D, and he's a major factor. So advantage Bears in that department too.
Yeah. Guys, pick one more game. What's the most interesting game on the menu left to be played?
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Cincinnati, Cleveland, because we just don't know how good Cleveland's going to be and how good Deshaun Watson's going to be. And Is he ever going to be the Deshaun Watson or even 10% of what he's getting paid, which is ridiculous? I think Cleveland still has a top several roster in the league. The question is, do they have the coaching? Do they have the discipline? And are they really good enough? And Joe Burrow, talk about guys who are getting paid yesterday. Cha-ching for him. Good. He's earned every dollar of it. I love everything about the guy. I hope his O-line stays intact for an actual whole season. Cincinnati is just, they should be really, really good again this year. And I think it's an interesting matchup of a couple of teams from Ohio that probably don't like each other on paper anyway.
That's a good one. I'm going with one that Cris and I talked about before, and that's Miami and the Chargers. I just find it's a fascinating game to watch. You have the speed of Miami. Speed kills, and that's a new NFL with speed, versus the tall wide receivers of the Chargers, the no-speed Chargers for the most part. They're going back to the traditional. We've got guys with large catch radiuses. We've got a really good quarterback to throw to them. A contrast of styles, but not necessarily a contrast of teams. These are both potentially, if everybody stays healthy, really good teams. I just think it's going to be a great game to watch. Cris, your turn.
I think, believe it or not, I mean, I mentioned it before. Every one of these games has a storyline of interest.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, usually I go into a season and I couldn't care less about 10 of the teams in the least. I'm really interested in almost every single team, but I think the San Francisco-Pittsburgh game seems most interesting to me. I really want to just see what the hell happens. I just want to see. There's so many unknowns with San Francisco and their chaos preseason, the quarterbacks, and is Purdy really Purdy, or is he, a flash in the pan?
Or is he only Purdy good?
Yeah. And then what's going on with Pittsburgh? They world beaters in preseason, but what do we really know about the quarterbacking situation? And are they going to stay healthy? And this is talk about what you said about Chicago. This is a must-win for Pittsburgh. There's no room for error. If Pittsburgh's going to do anything this year, they really need this game. Their schedule's tough, and that is a tough division. So that's why I like that game the best. I kind of worry about it on a betting standpoint because it is a public dog, and we know how public dogs fare. So, and I do believe San Francisco is the better team, but like opening day last year, it's a situation, and they're on the road. They're not all in tune. There's a little bit of injury here, the injury there. We have the conditioning issues with San Francisco all season to worry about again. So that's why I'm interested in it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got two ways of looking at the Steelers this year, especially week one. I absolutely despise what preseason means these days and how they use it. And I think it's just a total waste of time, unfortunately. But it's interesting. You got old school Mike Tomlin, who was 3-0 in the preseason, and he tries to a point to get something accomplished. And I like that about what they did and coming into this season and how they've picked up they've signed some guys and they've, they're draftees and all that. They look like a fascinating team to me. And I think they're going to be a really good team to watch. And the Niners, it's great to have Bosa back. I don't know how much he's going to be effective in week one, but I guess he's that good where he could just show up and play. But that to me is a little bit of a question mark.
Next question, it says, what team has the widest win-loss range? And the easiest one for me would be to go with Miami because I don't know if Tua is going to play 9 games or 17 games, and we talked about Cleveland. But I'm gonna pivot a little and go with Denver in this situation. And the reason I'm going to pivot with Denver is because a lot of weird body language with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson this offseason. And we know Payton's creative offensively. We know their defense is still really good. The ceiling is, especially with Kansas City's early contract issues, etc., the ceiling is a challenge for the AFC West title. And the floor is that Payton dismantles this team after this year and starts over and gets his guys in there because he's frustrated beyond belief with the offense. They already got rid of a couple of offensive linemen. They have wide receiver injuries and so on. So all of a sudden I see Denver, who could be anywhere from a 4-win team to a 10 or 11-win team.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't like what Sean Payton has done during this during the last couple of months with the talking about his quarterback, and he's made some weird comments that are not very Sean Payton like. It's almost like, hey, I'm making $20 million a year. I can say whatever I want. I don't care. It was a little out of character there, and I'm not thrilled about that. And I don't think just because he shows up, they're all of a sudden a wonderful team. They got some holes on that team. And I don't know how good Russell Wilson's going to be. He's obviously going to be better than he was because that was a joke. But he has his issues too. I thought it was pretty funny how Peyton said a couple of days ago, "Hey, Russell, keep it down. It's what you kissing babies here. You're not running for office." I thought that was a funny line. I don't know what that does for Russell Wilson. I think Russell's a little bit on the sensitive side, and I don't think that's going to help his cause. But who knows? I just have my doubts that they can really turn it around in 1 year.
What's your team, Ted? Oh, go ahead, Cris.
I'm going to go ahead just because I'm picking the same game. I agree with what you say with Denver, 100%. But I feel the Raiders actually along the same vein. But Denver may be the better answer because I do see more upside with Denver, but I don't see them going quite as far down as the Raiders could potentially go.
Okay.
The Raiders could very easily, if they don't win, they could very easily be 0-4. And if you're 0-4, I mean, you've got to dump Adams. You've got to start moving some players. You're rebuilding. You're not going to play out the season potentially. But if somehow they start off 2-2, well, now they can play. So that's the way I look at the Raiders. Ted, what was your team?
I actually have two of them, and they're not. I mean, it's hard to go from 4 wins to 10 or whatever. There aren't that many teams in the league that you're going to see that. But I see improvement for two teams, Seattle and Baltimore, that intrigued the hell out of me. I think Seattle is not just off a really good year. If I don't expect Geno Smith to do what he did last year, but if he's even close and he manages the game like he has and doesn't turn the ball over, they're a damn good team. And their defense is suddenly turned around in a 2-year period where it looked like they were going to be in hell for a long time. They have drafted well. They have signed well. They brought Bobby Wagner back, and he still got something left. I like everything they're doing, despite the fact that Pete Carroll's 150 years old now, and it doesn't seem to matter. And he seems rejuvenated like a kid. So I like what they're doing in a division that, they don't have to worry about two of the teams because the Rams and Arizona, forget about them. And the other team is Baltimore, and I love what Baltimore is doing. And obviously, you need a healthy Lamar Jackson. I like how they're going to change the offense a little bit. Hopefully, Odell Beckham can stay healthy and be close to what he used to be. They're talking about he's looked great in camp. Who the hell knows what that means? Anyway, I really like Baltimore this year, and I think they are the upset team of the season.
I love Baltimore. I'm all over them like a bad rash. Latest news, topical. Bosa is cleared to play for San Francisco, and
of course he
is
would be
questionable.
Yeah, I saw that too, and that's not a good thing either. You know what? You'd almost want to keep Kittle out of the game. If he's even, it's week 1. It's not the end of the world to them. If they win or lose, whatever. I wouldn't play him if it's that questionable.
Usually questionable means you're playing.
I know, but the fact that Kittle has an injury, he has a history of injuries, that concerns me about him. But
it'll be a physical game because
exactly
Pittsburgh's a physical defense.
Yep.
Ron, did you have a comment on Birdie's question here? I just think that I think both game plans are going to be pretty deliberate. What do you think?
Well, wow. If you believe in Denver's defense, I understand why you would do that. Sean Payton doesn't get enough credit for actually that he manages the run game. Everybody thinks, he lights it up. He generally puts his quarterback in favorable situations. They don't throw a lot of interceptions. In general, they don't take a lot of sacks, although that's going to be tested with Russell Wilson. I think he's going to try to put Wilson in favorable situations. What I learned from the preseason is they're not going to be afraid to run Russell Wilson, which is going to be a departure from the last couple of years. So I think clock is going to run. I would tend toward the under as well. Divisional game as well.
By the way, my issue with Russell Wilson is they might want to run him. I don't think he wants to run anymore.
I think he will. I think
I didn't say he won't. I will bet you watch he gets worn down for this year because he doesn't want to do that anymore. He's now a mega millionaire, and he's at the backside of his career, and he doesn't want to get hit. You could see his body language all last year. Every time it was not the same Russell Wilson, and that concerns the hell out of me.
I agree if they're 5-9. I disagree if they're 9-5.
And
I don't. Whatever it takes to win.
Well, I hope, because I like Russell. I hope he does that. But I don't see, unless he says, you know what, I'm all in on Sean Payton and I'm going to be the old Russell Wilson and I'm going to do whatever it takes. That's great, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, guys, we're at this hour mark. I know you wanted to do the Super Bowl predictions. I refuse to participate in that question. But if you guys would like to...
I never do. I just threw it out there because it was week 1. It'll never show up again.
I refuse to participate in that inane question. But if you guys want to predict who's going to the Super Bowl...
I will only predict because I got nothing better to do. But I don't really care about this question either. I'll just say I'm going with Baltimore and San Francisco.
Okay. I generally don't like to do this either, but I just threw it out there for the audience. I hate my picks. I picked Buffalo only because you can't pick anybody in Baltimore's division. It's too tough. They're going to beat each other up and then they're going to die. And then Kansas City with the end of the season schedule, which is absolutely brutal. If they're not the number 1 seed, they're going to disappear in the playoffs. So by default, I picked Buffalo. And then the other side, because I think Dallas and San Francisco is a little bit more of a chess match, and then the Giants and Washington are better than what the Rams and Arizona have to offer, I went with San Francisco. However, I think San Francisco-Seattle can be a coin flip if San Francisco starts slowly. And it's a possibility. There's film on Purdy. So I would say San Francisco and Buffalo, but it could all fall apart by week 3.
It's already over.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap this baby up. This first show of the year. Nice seeing you again, Ted. Ron, appreciate the contributions in the chat. And we will be back. Let's see. I guess we should. You're going to be all over those games we spoke about earlier on the radio, Sports USA Live. So if you're traveling in your car or whatever, you can listen. Yeah,
9:30 a.m. Pacific time Sunday, my pregame show before New Orleans, Tennessee. And next week, we have Cincinnati, Baltimore as our opener.
Ooh.
So that's a good one.
Yeah, that's going to be good. And you're going to have sound bites from that game, I'm sure. So we're going to feed you questions and we're going to have fun with that one.
Yes. And then also, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, then we have San Francisco and the Rams, but we'll deal with that later.
That'll be fun. Thanks for everybody joining us. We'll see you. Ron and I will be back on Tuesday afternoon, and we'll be back with Ted a week from today. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Have fun.